All right, what's up, everybody? This is the Danny and Mitch show, aka the BLBS podcast, and this is going to be a different type of episode. Mitch is back, but he's going to be interviewing me, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you don't know Mitch, he's a great friend of mine. We have two red hats that we like to wear, and we should. If you don't know that story, we're not going to tell it again. I, we were talking about an awesome series of workshops. They're still going on, right? Like
Yeah.
did they just start or they're about to start?
Started last week, the 25th. The next one is this Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Can people still sign up?
Absolutely. 3
Tell
p.m.
them
Just
where
go
to
to,
sign up. Tell them.
all right, everybody. Organizedbinder.com/EF as an executive function. And
Okay.
it's totally free, 5-part series. And don't worry if you missed one, we got a recording, but we also start each. They're 45-minute episodes, so they're kind of a sprint, but we'll review the previous topics before. So organizedbinder.com/EF. Come
All
join us,
right.
check it out.
And this show's about me. So, but I'm gonna give you a few more minutes.
No, that's it.
Like people, what
I didn't
what
even,
no, what will people get? Like, what's the result? Why should they sign up?
oh, good question.
Thank you.
So what we are really focusing in on, this isn't just an informational session. It
Yeah.
really is how to the 3 pillars of how to teach executive functions, which is clarity, modeling, and establishing a predictable routine, learning routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not just going to talk about those things. I'm actually going to model and show people actual student samples, teacher samples, feedback about how to make this a reality.
Awesome. So it's free. Go to organizedbinder.com/EF, sign up. And that's actually my favorite part when I'm reading the sponsor read. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast. The most downloaded podcast, in education, maybe even in the almost the world. It's in the top 0.5%. Like people don't get
I
that.
know, it's
Not just in
crazy.
education, everywhere. 0.5%. But anyways, when I'm reading your sponsor read, I love when I get to the part, it's a consistent and dependable classroom routine. What's that worth to you, right, Ruckus Maker? Like, what's that worth to you, classroom teacher, to be able to show up and offer a consistent and dependable classroom routine? Your kids deserve it. You deserve it. It just makes everybody else, that much more successful. So, anyways, yeah, organizedbinder.com/EF. Mitch is the guy who talks about executive functioning. And he's a good friend. And so this is all about the red hats though. And why we were laughing is, so we were wanting to promote this series of workshops, and somebody wrote into Mitch and he's like, the dude loved the red hat story. So I'm just putting that out there as a teaser. So if you haven't heard
Ah,
this episode, go back and listen to that episode, hear
it
more,
just
because
came
Mitch
out.
does talk. Yeah, and it unpacks executive functioning a lot and encourages people to sign up for the workshop. But we tell our red hat story, which is totally worth the listen in itself.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're really here to talk about a new live event coming up. So
Yeah,
I mean, you're gonna ask me questions. So what do you
I
got? What do you
know.
want to know?
I'm excited. Well, um,
Okay.
I'm excited in general for your event that's
Yeah.
coming up. And you know that I was obviously at, was it the first one? I was going to
Yeah, it
say
was the
the
first
last
one.
one, but last
It
one
was
I was
also the
in New
last one.
Mexico um, with ruckus makers, and it was amazing. It truly was,
Mm.
and for so many levels, so many reasons. And even though I know Denver's coming up, um, but I just want to hear what you have planned. So if you could kind of just take us, because I don't know a whole lot about what you got cooking yet, and I'm assuming people who are listening in don't either. So if you could kind of go from kind of a high level, you know, view of the
Mm.
whole thing, and tell us what you have planned for all of us ruckus makers.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to cooking, do you know that I make my own hummus back at home,
I,
like here,
I
right?
do. I do.
I
I need to
think
come
maybe I
visit.
should give out. Well, you do need to visit, but maybe like a special a special bonus for coming to Denver. I'll give everybody my hummus recipe. So I'm just, if you like hummus, come to the event.
Or
I'm gonna give you the recipe.
maybe a mini cookbook you could throw in a few of your other recipes, because I know you cook quite a bit.
That would be a fun little bonus. So, it's funny that you're bringing that up because D Money, who's not too far from you up there, Northern California, uh, once I gave mastermind members my mom's famous French toast recipe, and
Ah,
he's cooked it. He's cooked it for his family, and his boys love it. His kids love it too. He has a daughter as well, but he's also cooked it for his staff, who also love it, and that's what makes it world famous.
oh
French
my
toast.
gosh.
So I think we are onto an idea here. I don't know if I have enough time to put together the book and have it printed, but help remind
Stick.
me. You'll get my mom's famous French toast recipe. You'll get my homemade, also world famous hummus recipe. And not only that, you're going to get a brand new framework that I'm teaching ruckus makers and leaders for the first time, which I'm calling the leadership optimization compass, right? And so, yeah, part of it is, one of my favorite quotes comes from Seneca, who says, basically, if you don't know to which port you're sailing, no wind is favorable. And I shared that at the vision event too. But to me, it's compass is about direction. So this event's not about vision, but it's about direction. It's about optimizing your personal direction, right? So a lot of us go to events and it's like, oh, cool, let me learn how to do professional learning communities better, and you should. Or let me go learn about executive functioning, and all this stuff's good. Grading, right? Discipline, restorative practices and stuff. This event has one focus: you, the individual leader. Because, as this culture wall says behind me, when you get better, everybody wins, right? JFK said, when a rising tide lifts all boats. So it's all about you getting better because your community will benefit. And if there was a guiding question, the guiding question would be this: what would be possible if you were operating at your personal best consistently every day next year? What would be possible in your campus, right? That kind of question excites me. And we're going to figure out the answer at the live event. Uh, yeah, and I'm sure you have questions about what makes it special, how is it different and stuff. But we've got some really cool stuff planned for ruckus makers that come.
Interesting. Well, coming off of New Mexico and my experience there. I can only imagine it's going to be a life changer and a game changer, and that even intrigues me, as I'm not a school leader, right?
Mhm.
By choice. No offense, everybody, um, but I have the privilege of working with school and district leaders every day all around the country, and um, it's rare when you meet somebody who seems like they're um, operating at their personal best, which has so
Sure.
many different facets to it. That's not
Mm.
just a work thing, right? Operating at your personal best. So I would hope for any leaders out there, um, that at the very least is just intriguing. That because I
Yeah.
do think that's possible. I have met individuals that I think are in that space, but it's such a big job. I get it. The challenge there. But I love compasses. I love the kind of analogy that provides. Will you take a deeper dive for us specifically, or is that, am I pulling back the cover too early on that? But the optimization compass, tell us
Yeah.
a little bit more about that.
Well, sure. So there's four parts to the framework, Mitch. And if you think about compass, when I'm thinking about up here, the brain, that kind of stuff, that's mindset, right? So that's your head. When I think about my gut, uh, I'm thinking about relationships, right? And feeling full. Because doesn't a great relationship like just fill you? You know what I mean? And so that's something I think about. I'm right-handed, so it doesn't matter, is it east, west, or whatever. But part of it's vitality and our physicality. To be honest, and I'll share some statistics at the event, and that kind of thing, to really shock and wake people up. But I know school leaders neglect their health, their physical health.
Right.
There's a real cost to this, and it's not good, right? So I want to wake people up and start making a plan about how you're going to really take care of yourself. School leaders need somebody to say that, and that's how I show up. in this world. And then the last part too, the heart, at least for me. Now we're talking about awareness and the inner journey, right? So it's four parts: mindset, relationship, your physical vitality, and your inner journey, your awareness. And that's how it's built.
Hmm. Interesting, man. Well, tell us how, what makes, and I know some of this if there's any parallels from New Mexico, but telling us,
Yeah,
thanks for explaining the optimization compass and kind of that work, which of course will kind of be the fabric of this live event in Denver this summer.
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful place, by the way. Great choice. I'm glad it's not in, you know, someplace hot or something like that. It'll be gorgeous. But what makes BLBS events different? Because and I can just say, maybe I'm priming this. This is we didn't plan any of this, everybody, if you're
We
listening, and
didn't.
so we're just kind of chatting here. But this is not called the BLBS conference or the Ruckus Maker Nation conference, or
Yeah, yeah,
it's not that. So tell us what's different. What stands out in this?
for sure. And hey, I just want to give a shout out to Linda, my friend Linda. And hello, Linda. I miss you and hope you're doing well. She talked about like physical and mental, like these costs, right? Ignoring that stuff that actually translates to financial ones later. So thank you for pointing that out, Linda. So what makes things different? I think our experience, well, I call it an experience, number one, because I'm thinking from start to finish, even from the moment you sign up, but like, how do you experience it in a different way? Like an event and conference, it feels very transactional and you're there and you're gone and that's pretty much it. But for me, I know, listen, my mentors always said you have a choice, right? An inch wide and a mile deep, or a mile wide and an inch deep, right? And I would rather focus on depth. And the fact is, many of the conferences that will be available to educators and to ruckus makers this summer, they'll have 1 million sessions over a handful of days. Uh, it's really interesting on a variety of topics, right? And that could be seen as a strength, right? You can get a taste of all this stuff, but to me, it lacks depth. It's shallow, right? You don't become an expert in just an hour going to a workshop. So it's like, what are you doing with your time? So that's one edge I chose, going deep on the leadership optimization compass versus 60 topics, which I could do, but that's just not how I roll. Another main difference too is, many events available to educators and ruckus makers this summer, there'll be a lot of people, right? And our event is for 50 people. That's it, 50. So
Capping it at 50.
yeah, yeah, and
Right
plus my
on.
team. So there'll be like 56 total. Uh, but yeah, capping it at 50. Could I do a bigger event? Probably, right? Will I in the future? Probably not, you know. And why? Well, I want to have space for relationships to flourish and intimacy, right? I want individuals who come to get attention from me, from the other, BLBS coaches, from their colleagues. Plus, some people get lost or even like sort of triggered by massive events, right? I
Sure.
know I've gone to big events and I've just seen all the flood of, sea of humanity. And I was just like, nah. And I've hung out in my hotel room, right? Literally, I've done that. And so, but to be clear, this is not an event, just only for introverts or something like that. I'm just saying you're going to get personalized, real individual attention that you're not going to get at a larger experience. What's the benefit of a larger experience? There's a lot of energy with a huge crowd, right? Think Lollapalooza,
Sure.
any concert you go to, like that's pretty cool. Uh, but for me, it's like more, the stripped back. Does MTV still even do unplugged? I, I, I
I
wouldn't be able
don't
to
think so.
tell you. Okay.
I don't
So
think
maybe
so.
that's
I was thinking
dating,
about that actually sometime in the
you
last
know?
6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. But whether it was Nirvana unplugged or Jay-Z unplugged, like it's this stripped down, right? Just the lyrics, you with the musician there, and acoustic instruments. it has a different feel, and I like that. Okay, so that's another difference. Um, we're gonna do remarkable stuff, right? So I dare you to name any other event in education where people go learn world class leadership training, right? And then they go make a moment that they'll remember forever in their life. So here's how I figured it out. Last year in Taos, I sort of made a mistake. I invited you out a day early so we could hang out, wear our red hats, and get some great food. But what did we also do? We went on hikes. That's I'm laughing because that's part of the red hat story. But wasn't that hike a memorable experience, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and then after the event, people went home. And the mistake I made too, I took my team. It wasn't a mistake to take my team hiking. That was awesome. But we went into this canyon gorge, and saw all sorts of like just amazing stuff. I thought, dang it, this brought us so close, which was cool. And I should continue to do team things. But wow, what if we had kept the discussion around vision or kept the experience, brought the event, the experience out into something adventure related, right? And brought people on the hike. That would have been make everything better too. So this year, Mitch, uh, we are going to go whitewater rafting, right? So we're heading out west of Denver.
Fun.
I've already booked the tour company. Um, just need to give them a final number, in a few months, and we're gonna go whitewater rafting. Right now, I know that not everybody will be comfortable with that, right? So that's optional. I think most people will say yes. Most people so far have. If they're not doing it, then
That's
they'll have a day to explore the city, or they can go hiking, or keep implementing, which is
right.
another difference I'll talk about in just a second. But basically, we're gonna go continue to talk about leadership, right? And then whitewater raft. So that final difference, I should have said it before, the whitewater rafting is, when you have a sea of people without individual attention, when you have a million different sessions, right? In shallow versus depth of content, you also are just introduced to ideas. It's not like you're really taking action on them, right? So if you want to create bigger results for your campus, you need to implement. I say ideas are great, but they're not the greatest. What's better than ideas? Taking action. And so we'll have an abundance of space to implement and an abundance of space to network, to hear how others are doing it, and thinking through it. And it's really something that sets us apart from everything else.
Yeah, and I noticed that in New Mexico, one of the things I
Right.
appreciated was just the pace, kind of the cadence of the time together, and not only scheduling, but really kind of honoring time, just space,
Hmm.
and having some time for, you know, for us in groups to hear each other's stories, plan, like get
Mm.
ideas on things we'd learned in the at the event, and then also time alone, like time, just time.
Yeah.
Um, so it, with this event, so I can see that happening just from my experience. What
Mm.
take us even maybe a little bit deeper? I don't know if it's a deeper dive or keep teasing that out a little bit. What results, like, because there is some of that. You go, I think a traditional conference you're going, and it's like I have these goals in
Yeah.
mind, and I'm gonna have,
Yeah. Yeah.
we call those, I learned this, it's results. What do you see people walking away from? And I also just wanted to echo what you said, that um, that it's not there's it doesn't even sound like the event's meant to have a beginning and an end, although it will because it's a live event, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the
Right.
beginning of something new.
Yeah, for sure. So results, yes, you can expect when it comes to mindset. I'm definitely going to introduce, and you're going to start to use different mental models, which will help you expand your ability to recognize challenges on campus and to be able to solve those. So here's a very easy one, right? Um, the other day, I'm pulling out of my driveway. Uh, it's a relatively busy street, but not crazy. It's not like the interstate. And I just pull out like normal. Um, and there was some guy really booking it down the street. Like you're supposed to be going 30. dude's going like probably 55, 60, right? So as I start to pull out, I don't see him. But as I'm pulling out, he's flying, right? And he starts honking at me and tells me I'm number one. You know what I mean? And I'm sure there's a story that he's telling himself, and I'm like the world's worst person or whatever. But the mental model is like Hanlon's razor, right? And maybe I teach this at the event, maybe not, but all Hanlon's razor teaches us is this: like, often we attribute somebody's decision, like just me exiting my property to go. I think I was going to Home Depot with Alba actually to look at some new vanities, and he probably thought I was trying to ruin his day, right? Or that I'm some jerk and evil or whatever. When it was just like, oh, I didn't see him, So often we attribute to people like all these reasons for malice, that they were out to get us, versus they made a simple mistake, or maybe they're incompetent or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's a mental model that you could use. And there'll be many, many more that we're going to discuss and talk about how to apply to make us smarter and make better decisions and more effective as leaders. I know actually, we need resilient, gritty leaders. Obviously, we talk about this a lot. But there's this idea of being an anti-fragile leader. Like, what does that mean? But the thing is leadership's going to be tough. You're going to have challenges next year. It might be the hardest year you've ever been a leader. That's okay, right? So how do you develop a mindset so that you can consistently weather the storm? I don't remember the Marcus Aurelius quote exactly, but in his journal, Meditations, right? He talks about being like the rock. So basically that the waves come and crash and they continue to crash over it, but you are still steady, is the gist of the quote. I'm going to teach you how to be steady and weather the storm. And then if there's time, I don't know about this, but there's what I call these 15 choices that all the best ruckus makers make in order to optimize their performance. So that's just mindset. Relationships, I won't tell stories. I'm just going to go through the list really quick. But relationships, design and implement a system to manage relationships effectively on campus. So, right, leverage the ripple effect tool. The idea there is when you have a new project, initiative, or whatever, don't you want that to spread throughout the school and be adopted more readily or a little bit quicker? I've got a tool for that. So I'm going to show you it. And then we're going to share, swap, and steal all the best culture building strategies that people at the experience have, right? So we're just going to crowdsource like a little brain trust, right? And make that happen, which is going to be awesome. Vitality and awareness. I'll do this really quick. Review the fundamentals of what I call the Ruckus Maker Mindset Tool. And that is all about the fundamentals. And we're going to look at, like I said, research from, just like our vitality, our health, how that impacts us, and how we could build an ideal week, which I'm kind of known for, to support our own thriving in work. And then awareness, we're going to practice mindfulness and investigate our unique leadership experience and what that tells us. People may or may not know, I'm actually going through a 2-year program to become a certified mindfulness and meditation teacher, which begins in March. So I'll start bringing those tools, and I went to a 7-day mindful, right, silent day retreat, which was cool.
Right.
So it helps you as a leader, right? Slows you down. And then finally, there's a tool Dan Sullivan created that I'm going to introduce called the No Wasted Experience tool, right? And essentially, how do you learn from the biggest mistakes you make as a leader so that they are actually seen as a positive and a growth mindset sort of leverage point, and B, what are things within your control so that they don't happen again? History repeats itself if you let it. Right. So those are very concrete results that you can get from coming to the Denver event.
So it's obviously going to be pretty epic, and it's going to be very different.
It's going to be epic.
It's going to be epic. And I'm coming. If I think we've talked about this, it's fun to learn more about it. I kind of signed up whether knowing anything or not. And it happens to be my wife and I are celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary this year. So if
Nice.
I'm here and not traveling with her and my kids to celebrate, I am there. But
Yeah.
even so, right? Even so, there's going to be some people that don't get up in time. Don't get there and make that 50 cutoff. I have a very dear friend in Arizona who is a leader in a county office of ed who's signed up, and she's coming and might even bring some of her team. So people are jumping on board. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Um, but still, some won't. Right? Some won't. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't like this. I get asked this question sometimes on podcasts. It'll be like, so we know this lays the foundation for learning. We know it sets students up for success. Why don't we teach them?
Yeah.
And I'm always like, I don't know. I can help you with that. I don't know, but I'm going to ask you that same thing. Like, here's this amazing place, middle of the country, making it. I'm thinking you kind of were strategic there, easier to get to for everybody, or
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
central, maybe not easier. Beautiful place if you've never been in the
Beautiful
Rockies.
place.
Life-changing event. Some won't sign up still. So I'm going to ask
Yeah.
you that hard question. Why?
You know, there's some things that are out of your control, right? And those are valid reasons. Yeah, I had somebody who they actually signed up, and now her family are coming into town, right? So the partner's like, "Hey, you need to be here," type of thing. Oh, all right, shoot. But outside of like that type of stuff, um, I divide school leaders into two camps: ruckus makers, right? They invest in their continuous growth, challenge the status quo, design the future of school now. And then the other camp is play it safe principals, right? Who really do all their
Right.
best to protect tradition, not grow themselves, right? They're just fine with how things are going and this kind of stuff. Well, anyways, play it safe principles love excuses. That's another differentiator. Ruckus makers don't make excuses. And so these play it safe principles, they'll just, the easy ones are time and money. I don't have the time to go. I've got too much or whatever. Or I don't have the money to go, I can't find it. And it's just simply not true. Um, there's always, you always have time, you always have money for stuff that you prioritize, right? And so the rub is this, Mitch. This event's about you. Are you telling
Yeah.
me you don't prioritize you getting better? You know what I mean? Like I have a hard time with that. And the other thing that actually like hurts on an emotional level is like I know people will miss out because again we can see it here. When you get better, everybody wins. That's true. I think we can all agree that's true. Guess what? The opposite is true. If you're not getting better, your campus, your community is losing. And even if you're just maintaining where you're at, I think you're stagnating, like you're regressing as a leader. Everybody else is starting to lap you. They're getting better. So you have to make a choice. Is it ruckus maker or play it safe principle? If your family's not in town on July 14th and 16th, then you have no excuse. You got to make it work, right?
Right.
But if you're not in the first 50, then you're in trouble. The other thing I think that and this is a mindset thing. I think all leaders have trouble prioritizing their own development. They'd rather invest in their teachers. I've seen this firsthand, you know. Um, but you can't pour from an empty cup. I'm sure I could have had that made. I say that all the time. Uh, and if you don't prioritize yourself, take care of yourself, like BS is pro principle, we're doing an event that's just about you. It's not about all the other stuff. And so what's going to happen? At what point are you going to stand up for yourself? At what point do you say yes and do something for yourself? I'm not saying don't do things for others or be a servant leader, of course. I'm saying
Right.
don't do that and you are the one that always loses. That's not fair. It's not fair actually to the campus. It's actually a disservice to those that you think you're actually prioritizing, you know? I guess one way to think about it is like uh, hey, I've got kids, right? And I'm not going to do everything in my power to learn and invest in my ability to be a great parent, you know? And
Mm.
and so I'm just going to show up as this like adult that isn't aware of what's going on and has no business like having little young ones to develop. And who really suffers, you know? The kids will. So that's the put yourself first. That's what I'm trying to say. All right.
Mm.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm
Interesting.
enjoying this conversation, you know, Mitch, but we got to get in some sponsor reads, including one from Organized Binder. Let's start there. Today's show is proudly sponsored by Organized Binder, founded by this guy himself, the amazing Mitch Weathers. And Organized Binder is a program which gives students daily exposure to executive functioning skills like goal setting, reflective learning, time and task management, studies strategies, organizational skills, and more. Organized Binder's color coded system is implemented by teacher through parallel process with students, helping them create, here it is, a predictable and dependable classroom routine, which is why we love Organized Binder. Learn more and improve your students' executive functioning at organizedbinder.com. Learn how to successfully navigate change, shape your school's success, and empower your teams with Harvard's certificate in school management and leadership. Get online PD that fits your schedule. Courses include leading change, leading school strategy and innovation, leading people, and leading learning. Apply today at betterleadersbetterschools.com/Harvard. And teachers use TeachFX to record a lesson and automatically get personalized insights into their classroom conversation patterns and teacher practices. See TeachFX for yourself and learn about special partnership options for ruckus makers. And you can get that at teachfx.com/BLBS. We're back. Danny and Mitch, we, we should have wore our red hats. I don't know
I
why we're
know.
not wearing
Why
them.
didn't we think of that? One of these times
God,
we talk about it all the time, and you know,
for a podcast, we should do it. I don't
yeah.
know. You know, I think maybe if people want to experience us in the red hats, by the way, if you haven't heard that story, go back to the last podcast I did with Mitch. He was talking about executive functioning. Go to organizedbinder.com/EF and sign up for his free webinar workshop. It's like 5 or 6 and goes through executive functioning and it actually teaches you, you know, how to do it in your class. Anyways, we tell our red hat story on that podcast. The only other place you're going to get it is if you come to the live event. We'll have our red hats there. We always do. So we had
Oh
them in New
yeah.
Mexico. We'll have them in Colorado. All right. Speaking of the last live event and having our red hats, you know, tell us just from like a I don't know, a ruckus maker experience. You were there live. Why was the event special to you, Mitch?
Yeah. I've actually thought a lot about this, and one of the things that you've hit on with um, limiting the number, that was really special, and to be honest, kind of intimidating because going into that event, I knew some people through mastermind interactions, and just being a part of the Ruckus Maker Nation and knowing you for so many years now. But I didn't know them, right? I didn't know anybody but you. And I kind of showed up really wanting to support you and be there. Um, but it was the intimacy of it, you know. And
Hmm.
I think you could, if it's too small, maybe it's too, that too intimate or something. But that
Yeah, sure.
25 to 50 range, it just allowed for continual, ongoing, fun and meaningful conversations. And the other thing is the leaders that were there, there was a diversity of leaders, both in
Hmm.
terms of role, how long they've been leading, type of school, age, gender, ethnicity, race. I mean, it really was for such a intimate
Everything.
group. It was quite diverse, and because of the way the event was structured, and I had mentioned this earlier, it just allowed, it was that timepiece. And I've talked to leaders and educators. I get the opportunity to speak at a lot of conferences, And if you get time to talk to somebody beyond the 5 minutes after your talk, it's like, hey, I'll stick around if anybody wants to chat. Like if you happen to be sitting where they are at lunch or everything, there's a certain pace that, it can not actually be kind of fatiguing, even though if it's even a positive event. So I just felt like
Mm,
people could just sit in space together and learn. There would be very, like we were asking, like what are takeaways?
yeah.
What's this new optimization compass that you're unveiling? And one thing you are super gifted at, my friend, is teaching. It's one of your, it's truly one of your gifts. And I've been in the room now quite a few times when you're teaching or on top of a mountain. I've actually been on top of a mountain when Danny was
That's
giving
a story
a
too.
talk. Yeah, that was
We
pretty
got stuck on
fascinating.
the mountain. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
Oops.
Um, but Danny is a great teacher, and I enjoy being in the room whenever you're teaching anything. And so, but it wasn't just that, and then a workshop, and then lunch, and then this, and then this, and then this. It was, you would create space for people to dialogue or be quiet by themselves and journal, and then all of that would come back with some time to even share out and debrief, right?
Yeah.
So
It's the process.
it's what you were saying. It's not a volume thing. It's a depth thing, and you
Hmm.
need time with that work. I liked that. What was really special to me in Taos, and it matters to me as a, my soul, is that nature piece. So even
Hmm.
if you don't go whitewater rafting, where this is, you can be outside and
Yeah.
experience beauty in nature, and I think that's important. I would tell everybody the relationships were key. Just making um, friends, not just networking, right? But like
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
doing good things and all over the place, and hearing their stories and getting to know them. And then another thing, kudos to your team or whoever planned it. Hey, everybody, the food was delicious. And I don't know if you've been to conferences where the food's either subpar or not provided. That's not, at least that was not the case in New Mexico. Again, I haven't asked you about all this
Yeah.
in Denver yet, but I'm only assuming there'll be your hummus, some French toast, but maybe some other food too.
Those recipes for sure. Yeah, this time, so I decided to drop the price of the ticket to make it more accessible, you know?
Okay.
So
Okay.
the meals actually won't be included like it was last time, but that it's less expensive.
Okay.
However, there's incredible food all around, and there'll be options to dine together. It's just not gonna be the all-inclusive, type of
Like in house.
package that we had. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
And to be quite honest too, so this is a leadership lesson. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm not ashamed to admit this. It was very stressful putting that all together, right?
Hmm.
So in terms of saying, hey, your room is included, your food's on, like that's nice, because there were no decisions to be made. Do you eat meat, not eat meat? Like it was pretty easy in that sense. But for me, logistically and operationally, it was more stress than I wanted to absorb. And so sometimes here's the leadership lesson for the ruckus maker
Yeah.
watching or listening. Often we think we have to add more and more and more to make an incredible whatever, right?
Hmm.
And I'm gonna mess it up. I'm not sure if I think it was no, it was Leonardo da Vinci. He said perfection's achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away, right? And so it's like, okay, it's not less is more. We've heard this a million
Yeah.
times. And
Right.
so in this way, people have a little few more options, right? Because the place we're staying at, it's really a baller, it's a baller property.
Yeah.
And so, do you want to stay there? That's your choice. Do you want to find a more affordable option or even a swinker? Totally up to you. You could do however you want to roll. But, it's being held at a property called Le Meridian. Supposedly has the best rooftop bar in the city. And you can only imagine what the views are like there in Denver. So
Right.
it's gonna
Yeah.
be awesome for sure.
Yeah, it'll be gorgeous. Denver. I was there in this last winter for a conference. I would have much rather been there in the summer. Um,
Yeah.
it'll be beautiful. Um, let's go back real quick because I think you're guiding. question is worth pondering a little bit more, because that's truly, as I'm hearing you talk, like that's the work, that's the focus, helping people get some clarity around that. Like you had said earlier, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't remember, what would be possible if you were operating at your personal best.
Yeah.
I mean, that,
I'm,
how would you answer that question? What would be possible?
there's three areas I want to grow. And so I think, well, I know operating at my personal best will help in these areas. So I'm thinking about impact at scale, right? And I'm not bashful to talk about wanting to serve more ruckus makers. And we're very tight in how we serve, right? We're very focused. And that's a leadership lesson. Schools get this wrong all the time, trying to be everything to everybody. So at Better Leaders, Better Schools, we do three things, right? We support leaders in the mastermind community, which is a weekly leadership development experience. Then we have the Principal Success Path, and that's a 10-week experience. It has a clear start and end date, and it's project based, right? There's no projects in the mastermind. There's projects you implement in the Principal Success Path. And we're in week 3 of the path right now. And then the third way we support is through live events. And of course, there's all the free content. But so impact at scale, so scaling all of that. 2, better at developing my team, right? Because the only way to scale, right, is to build just the best team ever, which I do have, in multiplying yourself and creating space for them to bring their own unique personality, right, and talents and strengths to the table. Right. And that serves our people so well, right? I was actually really scared, in July. I made a crazy decision. And for my birthday, I decided it was Michelangelo. Okay, thanks, Peter.
I was just
Dang
going to
it.
say, Peter's fact checking you. Way to be, Peter.
Yeah, no, he's a new friend in the network, so I love that. And so the gift I gave myself was, um, I have this heart for serving more leaders, and I have to get out of the way, right? As the leader of BLBS, as a leader of any organization, you're the greatest opportunity and the chief bottleneck. And that chief bottleneck part is difficult for me to swallow. So I stepped away from coaching and facilitating the majority of the masterminds, right? And I think at the time we might have had 7 cohorts, I think. And I was facilitating 4, right? And the fear was, if I step away, are everybody else going to step away? Or are they going to stick around? But my book, Mastermind, became a bestseller. And I said, well, I believe in this idea transforming education. It's not about Danny, right? It's not the Danny show. It's got to be about the model and how we serve leaders, right? So fortunately, people didn't leave, and it only grew from 7 cohorts to 11 cohorts now.
Wow.
Right? We even have one that's that quickly in a 6 months. And we now have a group, right, that's focused on Europe, Africa, in the Middle East too, because before they'd have to be up at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. That's not sustainable. And now it's 7 p.m., I think, Paris time on Mondays. And shout out to Joe, who he leads that group. Shout out to the whole team. I mean, I couldn't do this, right, without Paige and Jesse and Jean and Kareen. And I don't think I missed anybody there in terms of coaches. Okay, so scaling, developing that team, right, because it's better for those we serve and the only way we can scale. And then focusing on being around for family, right, because it could be a challenge to turn this thing off. I love it. I could do this all day, every day, right? Nonstop. Yeah. I think you could too. And so I don't want to be that way. And I want to be more there. Even right now, it's my wife and our puppy, but we hope one day to have children in the equation. But even if it's just my wife and the puppy forever, both of them actually deserve more of my attention. So if I'm operating at my best, that's what's happening. Scale, develop team, and being present with family. That's how I'd answer that.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And I think, as you always do, the transparency in your own process, I mean, there's life lessons for everybody that'll be in Denver.
Sure.
Because what I'm hearing you, and if I had to guess, this will be about you and your growth too. And
Oh yeah.
there's already obviously takeaways in what you're saying for every school leader. I mean, just the family piece alone, and that
Right.
passion. Like, I could do this all the time. I mean, I like it all the time, but I'm lead this school or district or network, whatever it is. Like, I'm passionate about that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that balance is key. Um, well, I think you and I could probably do this. Speaking of all day,
You want it?
sit around and talk. But what is there? Is there?
Let's
You know,
do it.
what's
Don't
your
go.
what? I gotta go back to work. It's only 2 o'clock on the West Coast.
Yeah, you've got time. I've got dinner. So I mean, come on, man.
Very good point. Speaking of family, what's like? Give us one. One firm. Just takeaway. What do you want to leave the ruckus, the ruckus maker out there, or the person who's listening in and doesn't know anything about it yet, and everyone in between? Give us one
Yeah.
departing thought.
What would it be like to experience something different, something truly remarkable, right? And to put yourself first in kicking off, right, the 23-24 school year that way, right? Remember, the guiding question is what would be possible if you were consistently operating at your best? And that's what we're going to help you answer in Denver. So if you go to betterleadersbetterschools.com/Denver 2023, you can grab your spot. I think we talked about there's only room for 50. 28 people have actually already signed up, and I haven't even been talking about it. If you can't tell, in February here, we're going to really be talking about it a lot. This event will sell out, and we would love to see you there. It would be a pleasure to serve you. Thanks for having me on the show, Mitch.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.